Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Vibes. And I'd like to welcome here Gina Economopoulos. Did I get it right?
You got it right.
Sweet.
Yes.
So you are a end-of-life doula? Is that how you say that?
Doula.
Doula. Okay.
End-of-life doula. Yes.
Doula. All right. And also you're a former nun.
Yes.
Huh.
Way before I was an end-of-life doula. Yep. Correct.
Well, let's get to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
I definitely will, Kyle. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to be a guest on your show here. And it's I can feel the vibes. It's a great show of positive vibes, and it's something we all need. We all need to hear. And I appreciate, first of all, of your service of having guests coming in here to share their personal stories and to bring good vibes to everyone, and that's where my story is. I was raised in New York. I'm one of 8 kids, 7th child, but an Italian Greek family with the name Economopoulos. You can't, I'm not Irish, so it's all Greek to me, but I mean, I'm half Greek and half Italian, like I said, and my family was very loving, unconditional love. My father was a hard worker. My mother was the cute little Italian lady that just was a house mother and raised us kids, and she said it was a full-time job. I mean, and it should be recognized as a full-time job, and so I do appreciate my upbringing, and it was back in the 70s and the 80s, but yet as a child, as I'm going to just speak for myself because I can't speak for everyone else, but I grew up very with insecurities. I had a low self-esteem, and it had nothing to do with, I didn't get love. I didn't have love. I had love. I think for myself, because out of the 8 children, I was born with many physical limitations. Right from the get-go, I had a hip, as a baby, I was in a body cast because I had hip dislocation that my mother didn't was aware. I was born with all these bone tumors, and they had to get removed. I mean, it wasn't anything life or death. It wasn't anything like deadly, but at the same time, as a kid, it put a damper on my attitude about life and myself, and how come I couldn't be like my sisters? Why can't I run? Because my sisters were very athletic. I mean, they were very much involved in sports, including my brothers, and there was poor Gina. That's, to make it real long story, it was poor Gina. So I had this kind of like cloud over me. I felt like if anything bad's gonna happen, give it to Gina. I'll take it. I could. And at the same time, Kyle, during it all, I had a great smile, but so nobody knew that pain I had inside me. So it's something I carried along. I had built this false identity up. So fast forward throughout in college, in high school, like junior high, and high school, as well as college, I wanted to belong. Looking for love in all the wrong places. You know that song?
Oh, yes.
Well, I could have wrote it. I would have been rich by now. I lived it. So, and I mean that was just my motto, because I think once again I speak for myself. There was something inside me that wanted to be loved, accepted. Want to be part of a crowd, be a belonging, and I kept searching. And after college, because in college I did a lot of my drinking, partying. This is college life, and this is what we're supposed to do, and I enjoyed it, and I was the center of attention. Yeah. But yet, some of those, when I was drinking, I woke up in places that I shouldn't have belonged. But that was college. So once I left college, I went to go live with my parents. They were so generous and offer me to come back, like invited me if I wanted to come back, and they were living in Pennsylvania. They moved from New York to PA, because just to share with you that my mother had my younger brother Stephen when she was 49 years old. So
in a sense, and he
yeah. But he was a perfect I mean, my parents just loved him. I mean, we all loved him. I mean, he was athletic, everything smart. I mean, even to today, I'm so proud of him. And but so they couldn't do a full retirement in a way. So they went to Pennsylvania. He was still in junior high, whatever. And then when I graduated from college, I moved back with them. And what did I do with my college degree of being a social worker? And I was a pool shark. I was a very good pool player. I became a bartender. Yes, that's what you do with a college degree. And so that was my life. That's what I thought my life was all about. I'm 23 years old, don't have a boyfriend. Of course, I'm not, I mean, since I don't have a boyfriend, I'm not married, I don't have kids and all that. And then as during my time as bartending, my mother, who I love dearly, she was diagnosed with cancer and 4 to 6 months to live. And once again, it didn't, it wasn't happen to me physically, but mentally, emotionally, I was home with my mom, with my dad. Everyone else, Stephen went off to college, which was great. It was just my dad and I. And I would never say no. I would never turn my back. I would, I mean, here I'm about 23, 24 years old. And it's like, okay, I'm going to take care of my mom with my dad and she'll be healed. I had no concept of all that. Yeah, and my mother being a devout Catholic with my parents brought out the rosary, got the novenas and all that. And I said, yeah, bargaining. Hey, God, at this point, I wasn't going to church. So I started going back to church to do that bargaining. But needless to say, my mom died in 5 months afterwards. So, and it was a hardship. I was lost. And Kyle, that was like the beginning of my another journey of searching. And at this time, it was the meaning of life. What is the meaning of life? Because I had nothing really. I was just bartending and I took care of my mom.
Yeah.
So as time went on, as when I at my mom's wake, everyone says she's with God, she's with God. Okay, who is this God person? So I go back into the church and I literally say, everyone says, God, you're here, but I don't want to talk to you. Leave the church and I want to talk to my mom because they say my mom's with you. And that was, once again, a beginning of a spiritual journey, a beginning of a journey with searching, searching, searching. And in that search, I mean, I was like a sad sack, one would say. I deeply grieved for my mom for months, for months. I stopped bartending, I stopped living, one would say, and clinging to my dad, thinking that maybe he would die. Like I just didn't know. But yet, by going to church and whatever it may be, I had what we call a St. Paul's conversion. I don't know if you ever heard of St. Paul. Like,
I know who St. Paul is. So I've never heard that.
well, his conversion is he was a saint that wanted to go and fight and destroy, the Christian people. But meanwhile, he got knocked off the horse. He got sick. God spoke to him, and he had a conversion. And
Oh.
instead of persecuting the Christians, he became, a highly Christian person, of promoting God. So he went from against God to promoting God. So he fell off a horse. So I said I fell off my bar stool. I fell off my bar stool, got the light, the light shining, and here I am. I'm in the light. I'm with God. And what does Gina do? She joins the nunnery. I was a Catholic nun for 12 years in the South Bronx. I loved serving. We served the poor. We Franciscans, very simple life, slept on the floor. And I was sharing with you earlier how I've been to Texas. It's because as a Catholic nun, I had done a lot of retreats in those areas that I told you in Texas, Amarillo, all those places. So that was the taste of Texas to me. And I also knew some families from Texas and got good Texas food. And I think that was the first time I've learned that brisket. Never heard of brisket before until I went to Texas. But anyhow, so as a nun, that was a positive thing. My positive vibe as a nun is knowing what brisket is. But after 12 years, I left the nunnery, one would say. Matter of fact, I did write my book, my memoir called Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk. It's available on Amazon. And it has a lot more details of my experience as a nun, where the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the reasons why I left. in hindsight, it was because God didn't want me there. In hindsight, the day that I left happened to be the best day of my life without me realizing it. But once again, I endured a lot of pain, and just a lot of pain, rejections, feelings, emotions. Why me, God? Why me? Here you chose me because I was married to him. So as my journey continues, I came to go live with men with disabilities here in Jersey for a transition because I was about in my 40s. I didn't know nothing. I didn't know how to relate. I didn't know how to shop. I didn't know nothing about the world itself. Computers, TV. This was back in 2008 when I left. So I don't even know. I didn't know how to turn on a TV, turn on a computer, or anything like that. But I knew how to drink because we did some drinking in the convent. So anyhow, I did spend 2 years with these men and adults with disabilities. That sort of like was a transition time to put myself in the world because I didn't know nothing, but I learned, and plus I was broken. I was like got kicked out of the sisterhood. I mean, I was there for 12 years thinking it was my whole life. It's similar, like I try to share, it's like a marriage. A marriage didn't work. You go your separate ways. Because I was married to God and it didn't work, I guess. It didn't work. But I was angry. I was like, why? I mean, I didn't understand. So as I did receive a lot of healings when I was in this transition time. And then after 2 years, I was like, you know what? I want to do what Gina wants to do. I'm tired of serving. I've done I've done a lot of serving, like as a nun. That's, I've served the young, the youth, the gangs, the elderly, you name it, and I was great at it because I do have a heart of service. I didn't have a great time in the community in itself with the sisters, but when I was out there, it was great. So, but I got tired of that, so I did what Gina wanted to do, which she loves the beach, as I said, raised on Long Island. So I came to the Jersey Shore, learned I had to learn how to rent an apartment, everything like that. It was just everything was foreign to me. And the only thing I knew, and then of course I needed to get a job. And my dad was alive at the time, and he was so gracious that he supported me. He was always there for me, no matter what. He was always there for me. And so I had to get a job, and the only thing I knew how to do before nunnery was I was a bartender. So I went back to bartending. I mean, I was just trying to I was kind of lost, Kyle. You know what I mean? Saying I was trying to find by now I'm about, I guess, 42, 43, 44, whatever. And by now I thought I should have been married, had 10 kids, grandkids, all this stuff, a white picket fence. That was my dream as a child. My dream was to be like my parents, raising big family, and they just had such a loving relationship until the end. And so that's what I want, but that wasn't me. So I was bartending, I had to smile like this, didn't tell anyone I was a nun. And then a gentleman walked in, his name was Danny. And, make a long story short, we fell in love. It's like, oh my God, here's a guy who liked me. I like him. Oh my God, can this be? At first, I didn't tell him I was a nun. Usually a friend of mine told me, in the beginning when I was starting to date, don't tell them you were a nun because they will run. And they did run, Kyle, because I was telling guys I was a nun and they never called me. So anyhow, when I met Danny, I just said I was a social worker, and did my social work and talk or whatever. And so we dated, but I come to find out that he's an alcoholic. So, and at the time he was active in his disease. And so it was, I was not really familiar with alcoholism. I mean, to be honest, I thought an alcoholic was like a bum under the bridge with a brown paper bag. I mean, that's just how I thought. And that's sort of like, I mean, once again, I speak for myself. So anyhow, I didn't scare him that I told him I was a nun, and he kind of scared me that he was an alcoholic, but I figured he could stop. Okay, we're going to get married. He could stop. He encouraged me to go to Al-Anon, which is a family 12-step program for those, who's with an alcoholic or family, So I went to that, and I've learned, I heard about the disease and everything. And at the same time, Danny too was struggling with his sobriety, and found sobriety, lost sobriety, found sobriety, and it was like I didn't. It was just an up. It was all. It was such an emotional roller coaster for me because, to be honest, Kyle, I didn't know who I was. I'm here still searching for that love, and yet, Danny did love me. I experienced that love even when he was sober because he was a great guy when he sober. I mean, I come to find out alcoholics are great people. They're just simply sick. He was such a great guy, a good heart, everything generous. So anyhow, he did find sobriety. So I'm like, yeah, he found sobriety out in Arizona. Yeah, that's great. And he's like, come on, Gina, would you want to drive with me? Because he had to come pick up his truck, etc. And I said, Danny, I got to work. I'll come in a month. It was in July of 2012. And his mom said, I'll go with you. And I was like, oh, good. Everything. My dream is coming true. I'll live in Timbuktu with him sober with a white picket fence. But as he traveled, as him and his mom traveled with a truckload of stuff, belongings of his, because we're going to end up in Arizona, that they got into a tragic accident in Indiana off of Route 70. Yes, he hit one tree after another tree after another tree. He avoided it to hit deers, and that was like on a Friday night. And so that Saturday morning, I get that dreaded phone call saying that, mom and Danny was in an accident. Mom died, and Danny's burnt up. We don't know if he'll make it. So it's like, okay, I feel like it's that black cloud. Why me? God, here I am. This is a man and everything. So so of course I went to Indianapolis to go be with him, and we connected with the AA and Al-Anon group out there, the fellowship, because we didn't know anyone. We're in cornfield. We had no idea who anybody is, but yet there was a great group of AA people that just took us in. Whether we didn't know them, they gave us their car, their house, and everything, like a couple. It was just, wow, this is it. And Danny was still sober. And okay, Danny, we got engaged. We got engaged in front of like 20 alcoholics. Okay, we planned our wedding day, 6 months. This is it. This is it. But of course, a month later, he relapsed. He went back to drinking. And my attitude was like, "What? How could you?" You just because he actually, Kyle, he saw his mother burn up. He wasn't fortunate enough to get knocked out in that accident. He was awake and conscious. And mind you, Kyle, I had no concept of the disease of alcoholism. Like, why can't you stop? Why can't you stop? So with all that pain of him, not only the physical pain because he was burnt half of the body, but the emotional pain. And what does alcoholics do? What do? We go drink and numb it. We can't face it and everything. And so that's what he did, and at that time I was like in shock. I was like, how can this be? And I was in my own kind of relapse mode of, just back in my own pit of emotions, and I'm like, and then I'm manipulating, I'm doing everything, bribing him or whatever, or saying, if you don't get sober, we're not going to get married. But deep down, I knew we'll get married. But yet I kicked him out. Yeah, that's it. I'll show him. I kicked him out. He got an apartment right down the road, still in Indianapolis. I'm just waitressing at this time just to make by. And then one day somebody says they didn't hear from him. So I went to the apartment and found him dead. He died. He fell and, he died from the disease of alcoholism. Whether I wasn't there, but I say he fell into the arms of his higher power because he fell and hit his head, and that's how he had died. And he was dead for a few days before we found him. I found him. Okay, so I'll keep going because this is that. So that's the pit of pits of pits. I had no vibes, no positive vibes,
I can
nothing.
understand.
Nothing. I was dead. I was simply existing. I didn't even have any strength in me to go searching for anything. But what I did is that I came back to the Jersey Shore, and I was just like, I resigned to the fact, Kyle, that my life was going to be of pure dread. My life was going to be miserable. My life, nothing, nothing. My smile was wiped away. My heart was shattered. It wasn't even broken at this time. It was shattered. And whatever I always say, with a broken heart, you could put the broken pieces together when you break glass. But when the glass is shattered, there's no way of putting it together. You just throw it away. And that's exactly, literally how I felt at that time in my life. That this is it. I'm okay. Everyone else could be happy, have whatever, whatever. So I did come back to the Jersey Shore, and there was some, I believe it was God himself, something I did, I couldn't do for myself that he did was I went into these rooms of AA where I thought Danny would be, so I thought this was the tool for Danny to be sober. So I go in there, saying, why are you sober and he's not? And I have to say, Kyle, if my eyes could kill those first meeting, I would kill that. I was killing everyone with my eyes. Like, why, like this. I was so angry. I hated life. I hated God. I hated myself. I hated Danny. I hated, everything that was happening to me. I blamed everyone, and I blamed everyone. And I'm like, God, how could you do this? I gave my life to you for 12 years, and I suffered tremendously in those 12 years. And here you give me a God, this is how I'm talking. This is how I'm feeling. I said, Danny loved me, loved me for me. And the sisters loved me the way they love pizza. There was no, it's like, that's how I felt. So anyhow, I go to these meetings because I was invited by another person in recovery, and I said, I'm not an alcoholic. You guys are, I'm not. And they said, there's a tradition where you could come in, identify yourself as the desire not to pick up. You're not saying you're an alcoholic, but you could be part of the meeting. So there's a club here at the beach that I was going to, and desire not to pick up. And I was just, I was holding up the wall with my tears, with my anger, with my resentments, with everything. I didn't want to listen when they said about God. I didn't want to talk about God. I was just listening. And I happened to do that for about 10 months every day. And people coming up to me like, you're not an alcoholic and you come to these meetings every day. And then a friend of mine that I met through those meetings, as well as through Al-Anon meetings, said to me, Gina, what is your relationship with alcohol? My relationship? Aha. So in hindsight, I look back. In hindsight, oh, what did I do with my pain? Instead of not only being miserable and manipulating, I was drinking. Could I stop? No. Was I at places? Did I black out? Yes. But it was that pain, that common denominator as an alcoholic we all come into. And so on April 2nd, 2015, my hand raised up in this meeting and I said, hi, my name is Gina and I am an alcoholic. Oh my God, what another thing in my life? What is this? Another thing, and everything that I had carried through my life, through that insecurity, those fears, that anger, the resentment, the hatred, the pain, the mother, losing my mom, everything just opened up. It just opened up and they've got more pain. I was like, and I knew since I said I was an alcoholic, I joined the club, so to speak, and I knew I couldn't run to alcohol to ease it, to soothe it, and then in hindsight, I learned that I built up this false identity, that I was a runner, I was in denial. So being in the rooms for almost 10 years, God willing, in April, but all I have is today, is that I have learned that once I am an alcoholic, that I'm powerless. I've also learned that day, that painful day to say that I was an alcoholic has been the greatest day of my life. It didn't happen overnight because I did what the program suggested for me to do, sponsor, go to meetings, of course, don't pick up. And it's a one day at a time process. And so I've learned a lot of tools in the program. The tools, at first my little toolbox was very small because they would always talk about gratitude and I was certainly not grateful. Nope. I don't want that in my tool. Acceptance. No, get away, get away, get away. No acceptance in my God. Oh my God, he can't be in my toolbox at all. So it was very, very small. And also I just share quickly that when I did say I was an alcoholic, and then I kind of talked about being angry with God. At that time, nobody knew I was a nun, and people would come up to me and say, "Oh dear, God loves you. He's there for you." And I'm like thinking to myself, "No crap, God loves me. I married him. I'm divorced to him. He's on the couch. I don't even tell me what I don't know. He knows me. And that was the kind of relationship I had. But today I have a new relationship with my higher power, whom I choose to call
Amen.
God. Today I'm living a life to my best ability, and happy, joyous, and free. Having the tools to live life on life's terms. Yes, challenges come, death comes, grief comes. Um, a black cloud may come, but yet it doesn't consume me anymore. It doesn't paralyze me. Fear doesn't paralyze me. I learned to deal with my feelings. I learned it's okay. I learned not to give up. There's so much I've learned that everything that has happened to me, every path has had every pain, every person, every rejection, you name it, it's who I am today. And so I felt inspired when Danny died about 10, 11 years ago now. I wrote out all my pain. And in that pain of writing about Danny, I wrote all the pain that I experienced as a nun, as a sister. It was 180 pages. I put it aside. And then about 2 years ago, being in recovery, about 8 years in sobriety, a friend of mine says, "Oh, let me look at those 180 pages." And so she did. She put it together as a beginning of a story, beginning of a memoir, and then she goes, "Write what's now, write what's now." And so I wrote another, so many pages, and I just published my book in a sense of my story of it's about faith, hope, not giving up, self-discovery, healing, you name it. And it's called Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk. And that's what I'm doing today. So today my goal is to spread that message. And at the same time, I know you introduced me as an end-of-life doula. End-of-life doula is someone being with those who are dying at the end. And that was a seed that was planted as a nun, and it continues to grow. And I have a passion and a love for being with those present who are dying, knowing they're going somewhere, wherever they think they're going, better or any place, or be peaceful, whatever service they want. I could pray, I could be quiet, I could do whatever they want to do to make it easy passing, as well as for their family, because I'm familiar with grief in many forms and fashions. And I'm a great griefer, I'd say, tears are my best friend, but then yet everything that I've experienced and gone through and standing today is because of who I am today, that I am. My name is Gina. Not that I'm an alcoholic, I'm a child of God. I'm somebody in the light that I'm trying to live my life and spread that message of hope and strength to many. So,
Amen. Amen. And your book is on Amazon?
yes, it is.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll put the link to purchase the book there. And do you have a website?
Yes, GinaEcon.com.
All right. I will put that link as well, and then social media, all that good stuff. But Gina, thank you so much for coming on today. That's an inspiring story to never give up. And I'm one of those that if you're going to divorce someone and then get back with them, I don't always recommend that. But when it comes to God, it seems like the second time around is so much better than the first time.
Yes, it is. Agree.
But again, thank you. And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button for my regulars. You guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Till the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network